How you doing today?
Hey, your name's correct. I'm glad to see you back.
Correct. I'm back
Yeah,
to be Brandon and not Tom. You guys don't
yeah,
have the Tom show.
yeah. No, we really have our act together today.
That's it. That's it. Tom, did you get a lot of grief when the TomTom GPS things were really popular?
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I get more grief or more questions though. People asking me, am I related to Tim Burton, the director,
Ah,
or
there you
or
go.
Jake Burton, the snowboard guy? Um,
Ah,
and I told him, they usually ask me this at the airport, like I'm checking in, and the person you're checking in, are you related to so and so? And I said, if I was related to either of those guys, I probably wouldn't be flying on this airline. So um, no, no, I'm not.
that's pretty good. Yeah. Well, you know what I got today, and I haven't had it for a long time, but 30 years ago, I got it like 10 times a day. I got a FedEx guy. He said he was looked at. I had a sign that wrote B Lee, and he said, "Oh, B Lee, is that like Bruce Lee?" And I said, "Yeah, he's my dad." And he
Okay.
started cracking up. He goes, "No, seriously." I go, "Look, my name's Brandon Lee. Bruce Lee's my dad." And he goes, "Oh, Brandon Lee, I love that guy." And he chatted with me 5 minutes about the Crow and everything else. But that really was like a 5+ times a day when I was like in college and grad school. And poor guy, Brandon Lee was awesome, and unfortunately died filming the second movie, or else I could have rode his coattails for a little bit longer.
Yeah, yeah. Oh well, we'll have to find something else.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So what's
Okay,
our
well,
topic
let's
today? I know we're not trying to talk about ourselves. So
we don't want to talk about Bruce Lee.
yeah,
Yeah, so let's talk. We're going to talk today about the role of buyer enablement in social selling. And you brought this up last week. In fact, last Tuesday's topic, today's topic, and next Tuesday's topic are all ones that you and I have been noodling on. I'm excited for us to bring the community involved with some of the things that we've been noodling on and get their input and feedback. But why don't you kick us off around, like, first of all, what is buyer enablement? What
yeah.
the hell are you talking about, Tom?
So that's an area that's kind of um, close to my heart because of my book, right? So
Yeah,
the whole concept of the revenue zone was, how do you enable your buyer who, when they first, when they have no don't really know who you are, they don't really know a lot about your product or service, maybe they have a little bit of awareness of both. How do you enable that buyer, knowing that they want to be in control of their own journey, to get to the point where they're in the revenue zone and they want to do business with you, right? And that's the premise of the
right,
book. And as we know, right, buyers want to be in control of their own journey. So therefore, rather than trying to fight that and say, no, no, let me as the seller control the journey, we want to enable the buyer to effectively be able to control their journey, but do it in a way where they end up in a place where they feel as though we're the right company to be doing business with, and they have strong demand for our product or service. So
Tom.
obviously that's
Let me ask you a question. Let me
sure.
ask you a question because I think you said a lot there.
Uh,
What does it
don't get me
mean? What
started.
does it mean for the what does it mean for the buyer to want to control their journey?
Well, again, we talked about this, right? Historically, back in the day, if I wanted information, I had to call a salesperson. So I had to, call a salesperson, get the brochures, get the collateral, even get a demo, whatever the case may be. So, I wasn't in control. I couldn't do my own research. I couldn't, it was hard for me to find even other people, that I could reach out to. So basically, I had to be, letting the seller control my research process and so forth. Um, Now, as we know, right, buyers want, including you and me, we want to do our own research. We want to do our own due diligence. And then when we're ready and we feel as though we could use the help or assistance of a salesperson, we'll reach out. But as we know from Gartner and others, right, a lot of 80 to 90% of that buyer journey is done before they are, somebody is willing to, or even has any need to talk to a salesperson. So we want to enable that journey as best as we possibly can.
And how would you differentiate that from lead generation?
Well, lead generation is really all you're doing is, right, is you're trying to get a name. I mean, the whole concept of lead generation is you're trying to get an identity. and then do something with that identity. That's fine. Let's say you're doing lead generation. You still have a lead. How do you enable that lead then to get to the point where they're willing to do business with you? So obviously we're talking about social selling, and we were talking about on Tuesday was, hey, the first milestone, or maybe not the first, but a milestone in the process would be getting a meeting or getting a conversation. Well, that's great. Okay. And then we also were saying that that's certainly not the end of your journey. So then now that you have a relationship or you have a meeting, now how do you continue to enable that buyer, again, on their own as much as possible, to continue to ascend to the place where they're in that revenue zone, willing to do business? And if you remember Carson, again, I know we keep referring back to Carson, but he's kind of been a case study of all of this. That's exactly how he did his 9-figure deal, right? Is continuing to enable the buyer to get more, create more and more demand and more trust, or the buyers in his case, all the way along.
Yeah. Yeah. Just admit it. We're fanboys. That's all. We're just fanboys.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all right. Could be worse.
Yeah, absolutely. There's worse people to be fans of. Yeah. And I think that the reason I asked the question of like, what's the difference between lead gen and buyer enablement is that lead gen scratches the surface, right? It's maybe, I think practically speaking, the tactic is here's a white paper, here's a case study, here's a something, fill out a form, and it's kind of our goal is get that name and email, and then throw it into the manual outreach, sales oriented things that we think we can control. Key operative there is things that we think we can control, right? And we start going then and saying, come talk to us, come talk to us. And because buyer behavior has changed so much, the difference is, how do we provide ongoing content that is in a strategic way that enables a buyer to kind of lead themselves through that process? And
yes,
the role that social media plays in that is huge, because it's a place that we can provide very organic access to content to allow them to consume it how they want, the way they want, when they want, in order to control their own journey. That sound about right?
Yeah. The only thing, just one more thing to add to that is our job in enabling the buyer is doing our best to provide the right content at the right time. So, if I'm early in the buyer cycle, and this is a problem with even traditional lead gen, because the idea is maybe, they're going to download that white paper or whatever, and that's going to be like a one and done. What we want to do is, right, what is the appropriate piece of content if they're just becoming aware of you, just becoming aware of your company or your product. And then as they move and become more aware and they have more interest and they, build more education and more understanding of what they're doing, having the right pieces of content at the right time. The example I give a lot is the first piece of content for somebody who doesn't know anything about your company is probably not a customer testimonial, because they have no context. They don't know what's this even about, right? But after they've consumed maybe several pieces of content, they understand more even about a product that you're doing or the category that you're in or your business, then a customer testimonial or a customer reference makes logical sense. So it's, again, getting things in the right place at the right time. That's what I talk about as the yellow brick road in the book, is taking them down that sequence. So that's how you enable the buyer, right, is providing relevancy at the right step of the process.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd like to just look here. First of all, Brian, 100% right. The Crow was a great movie, and that's just not debatable. That's a mic drop. Anyone who wants to argue with me, you can't. Too bad. Go away. Anyway, Neela, and what Neela says here, I like this concept, and I think that this totally relates to buyer enablement, is that people buy from people they trust. And we used to use the term more of who, know, like, and trust. I think the only difference now is the way that they meet somebody, they learn to know somebody, like them, and trust them has changed. But the foundation of it is still the same.
Always still the same, right? I mean, any relationship goes through that no matter what. You know somebody, you start to like them, and then you trust them, or you hope that it goes in that direction. So No, that hasn't changed, but how we
Yeah.
facilitate that has changed.
Yeah. So what are your what's your view of like practical, tactical? You know me, I like to talk more tangible, tactical. I love the models, I love the theory of it, but I think where we really help people is tactically. This is what you can do. These are the steps, so to speak, to do. What do you think? What are some of those steps that we can do inside of social that helps enable our buyers?
Well, I think that, the first practical, right? If you're going to, and this ties into a little bit we were talking about on Tuesday, but if you're going to
Mhm.
embark on a social selling strategy and a social selling system, again, look towards the ultimate goal and the outcome, which is you want a business transaction, right? You want a sale or a partnership or a contract or whatever the case may be that you're going for. So always remember to look at of where you're trying, the destination along the way, not just the milestone. As part of looking at that, then take a look at, okay, your customers, right? Even if you've done it off of social or whatever, you generally know how they proceed and how they learn and how they understand and how they build that know, like, and trust and how they build demand. So map it out, right? I mean, that's what my book is about. I have free tools for doing that. Map it all out, map out your yellow brick road, understand it before you start getting into your whole social selling strategy. Then as you start doing your systems and all the things that you would do to get meetings or build relationships online, then okay, great, I got a meeting, Brandon, with you. I hang up with that meeting. Hey, by the way, Brandon, what I'm going to do when we're done here is I'm going to send you something that I think you'll find really useful. It's a video on so-and-so. Then when I send you that video, make sure that that video says, hey, Brandon, the next thing is you should read, whatever, right? I'm helping you. I just did this literally before this call. I had a prospect meeting
Mhm.
yesterday. I'm now sending them content that's the next logical thing for them to actually read and consume.
Mhm.
But I have to know that
So
going in as part of what I'm doing.
absolutely. So Brian had a good question, and I think this is good for you based on what you just said. So what do you think of the concepts of top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel from a content standpoint? And does that differentiate? Is that different than what you were just saying around the yellow brick road?
It's the only thing that's different with it is, and I don't like because I'm not a big fan of the funnel analogy, right? Where you start and then you kind of, go down to fewer and fewer.
Hmm.
I'm more of, hey, let's put as many people as I can and move them into that direction.
Hmm.
So I'm not a big funnel person in terms of that mindset as it goes forward. But with
Yeah.
that mindset, the concept is, right, is yes, there is content and information that makes more sense early in their journey, right? So I like to think of the funnel as a journey, not a funnel. So then
Hmm.
let's call it top of journey. So TOJ, middle of journey and bottom of journey or later in the journey.
Hmm.
And I think then, yeah, it's totally relevant from that perspective of looking
Yeah.
at it as what is relevant content based upon where they are in their journey.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to social, because of the characteristics of social media. So when we started with the funnel concept, and the funnel is definitely like this, right? Get as many people as you can at the top and work their way through the content, and you get a couple of people that become buyers down at the bottom. Brian, here's why I don't like that concept of funnel. And of course, why we originally created the company as Funnel Amplified is because of a social presence for individuals. What we can essentially do is flip the funnel, right? And I don't mean from the ABM, terminus term of flip the funnel, but what we do is we do flip the funnel though, and now you're looking at it like this, and you got you up at the top, right? And you got a voice, and because of your social activity, the content that you create, because of the going live, doing podcasts, doing YouTube videos, whatever it may be, what happens is we create community, we create audience, we create people that are wanting to, as I say, they invite us into their circle of trust. And how that looks practically is they opt in, they follow us. When they get an invitation for a live event, they put it in their calendar, they show up because they know us, they like us, they trust us, they're aware of us. We've through our content, we've demonstrated some sort of influence or expertise that's generated interest. And then through the ongoing consistency of sharing that content is where we start to create demand. And how that looks is, I've got a story of somebody, some of you may have heard this already, but I was actually at a training, a sales event. I was at Outbound a couple years ago, and 400 or 500 people in the room. Somebody's up on stage speaking. I'm frantically taking notes, and all of a sudden I get a ding, and it was somebody who was on my site, and they said, "Hey, Brandon, I really want to talk to you about XYZ." Now, I recognized the name, but I didn't really know who they were. I had never had a conversation with them, but my content had been nurturing them. My content had been educating them. My content was moving them down a yellow brick road. And I didn't know them specifically, but the intent was there. Like, I'm sharing this content for a reason. I'm going live for a reason. I create these social posts for a reason. I put this stuff on YouTube channel for a reason. And it wasn't like, hey, can we schedule a time for you to come in and do a demo? It was hey, we need you to come in and help us with this.
Yeah.
That's where I think there's just the slight difference, Brian, between, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel content. When we think and start realizing that we have the ability, because of social media, to flip that funnel and put ourselves at the top, become an influential voice. Now, people, if you don't like the word, I'm not an influencer, I'm not an expert, well, you know what? Get over it. You've got to establish an influential voice. You don't have to be an expert in everything. You don't have to be an influencer. But if you want to succeed, and I think going back to our little fanboy stuff of Carson would say his social presence, his social activity as part of his overall sales process has helped him win deals he wouldn't have won otherwise. Mm-hmm. In the tunes of millions and millions of dollars. Not, every now and then something falls out of the sky and I have a lucky day. So that's where I think I don't like the terms of the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel. I do love Tom's terms of the yellow brick road and being intentional. But what I like with social media is the ability for us to do those activities at scale and in public, which means whoever they are, they can come in and capture your content, engage with your content, consume your content, be educated. And you may not even know the process is happening, but that's the value of demand generation. That's how we create demand. And the one thing, and then I'll shut up. I know I've been going on here a little bit. Sales leaders that like to think, hey, we've got to have control. We have to know our KPIs and how many calls we're sending out, how many calls we're sending out. I get that need to be in control. But when we start looking at the data, you really don't have control to begin with. You're making 500 phone calls to maybe have a conversation. You need 5 to 6 conversations before you get an opportunity. You're spinning your wheels, wasting a lot of time. The control that we have is consistently opening our digital and social voice in the form of content that we create, we share, we're there, we're in various places, we're in TikTok, we're in Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn. That's the KPIs that we can use, and then watch the swell of people that start to resonate with the content. And that's where opportunities happen. Sorry, I went a little longer than I should have there.
I guess you care about it.
I'm totally passionate about it. And I get frustrated that it's, and this isn't at you, Brian. And I love, I'm fine being an influencer. Absolutely. We created the whole concept of the funnel, and I love HubSpot and I love what they did and I love the inbound marketing model. But when it's not functioning as well or as efficiency as it used to, we have to have the courage to pivot. And too often we're like, well, this is what we do. This is what we do. This is what we do. This is what we do, to a point that we look up one day and we go, oh shit, we're out of business. And I believe that we are in a very particular time right now. And we've got 8 seven years left in this decade. I believe in 50 years time, people are going to look back on this time from 2010 through 2030 as the same way we look at the Industrial Revolution. Like, this is the beginning of massive shifts and change. And we have to have the courage to make those adjustments now.
Yeah. And I get it. It's hard to, and I look at this in other parts of my life, right? It's hard not to feel like you're in control. Right. And then you want to control things by putting effort in, or getting your hands on it. And I'm not saying the whole idea of buyer enablement is to be more in control, right? Absolutely, to be more in control, but to do it in a way that enables the buyer to get down their yellow brick road. By doing that, you're being in control. If you don't enable the buyer, then you don't know where they're going to go. They're going to end up likely on it. And this is a problem in this new world, right? If you don't enable the buyer, they end up down a rabbit hole. They end up in the Google rabbit hole. They get confused. They don't make a decision at all, right? So it's not like they go to your competitor. They get overwhelmed and don't make a decision at all, which is as bad as anything. So it's our responsibility to enable the buyer. And Gartner has a whole bunch of, they call it customer journey orchestration. So they have a much fancier term for it. But there is a lot of conversation taking place around this topic. And I agree with you, Brandon. It's going to be more and more critical. And it's critical to social selling. It's critical to your demand gen strategy. You need to know how you want to guide that. You just can't hope that the buyer finds their way into your revenue zone. They're just not going to, right? Or if it's a blind squirrel, right? Every once in a while it happens, but that's certainly not a good sales strategy. It's not a good strategy for predictable revenue.
And I'd like to emphasize here for anybody that's listening and kind of has their arms crossed, and like, we're not saying don't do the other things, right? This isn't, I think there's so much hyperbole spoken in the social selling world. There's so much all or nothing being spoken by a lot of experts, right? That, this is the only way. Look, this is not the only way. This is part of the way. Should you still be going to conferences? Absolutely, if they make sense. If your people are going to be there, there's enough of your ideal are going to be there, your existing customers, whatever, you need to be there, right? But if you I'm sorry, I got distracted. I just got a thing that popped up that said one of our streams is struggling, and it might be LinkedIn, but we'll see. This doesn't mean don't make cold calls. This doesn't say don't go to networking events. This doesn't say don't send out emails. It says this is something that you need to be doing. Like it or not, sales is not easy. And if you're looking for an easy button, the first place people go to look for an easy button is either going to be email automation or social selling. I think let's just go spam a bunch of people and tell them how awesome we are and wait for the phones to ring. And it just doesn't freaking work. This takes effort, and it takes consistency, and it takes practice. And if we take the concept of this inverted funnel and we can buy into that philosophy, and all we have to do is kind of stop for a minute, close our eyes, and think about the way any of you buy. Like, I love doing this with sales leaders. Like, how do you buy? When was the last time that you took a cold call? Other than for the reason of you're curious because this is your industry, right? Like, that's not a fair answer. But when was the last time you were like, oh, I have no idea who's calling me, let me answer that? Like, we just don't do it. When was the last time you went and looked in your spam folder and started looking and going, maybe there's some gold in here, let me go see what people are doing? We just don't do that. And so if we put so much emphasis, so much time and resources, salaries, time, whatever, into make more cold calls, it's just going to wear people out. Give them the ability to create outreach activities like in social media where they actually connect with people.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, because I'm going to just give you an example of something I'm doing now, and I'll let you know in a couple of weeks how well it works. So I'm going to Dreamforce, which is Salesforce's big conference. They haven't had it for 3 years, because of COVID. So they're having it again.
Yep.
And it's the 19th of September. And as you know, LeadSmart, my company, we're a Salesforce partner. So there's a bunch of people that I want to meet and get that I haven't met before. And there's some prospects and other people that I want to meet at the show. So I've got those identified, and I've already started my social outreach to them, connecting with them, building relationship. Hey, you're going to be at the show, all of that kind of stuff, and even providing them information. And I've already got a couple of meetings set up, but those meetings are going to be so much more productive because we're already building the relationship. I'm already enabling them online. So now when we meet in person, it's going to have so much more impact rather than me trying to explain what we do and all that kind of stuff. They've already got there, right? And now we're actually going to talk business. So I'm using this strategy as a social selling strategy, if you want to call it that. But this is like business development because there's partnerships and things like that we're trying to take advantage of at the show there. And we're going to do that all in advance. This is the first, we haven't done this for 3 years. So this is my first time going through this process, but I can already tell right away the show is going to be so much more productive. And always a problem with shows, right? As you meet somebody and you meet so many people, it goes in one ear and out the next. That won't be the case because I can continue the conversation. I can continue everything all the way down the line from the show. So again, all comes back to to me, it's just, smart selling. I don't, those would be social selling. It's just smart. It's just a lot more effective, And I'm also, and by the way, I'm getting, I'll just say one more thing. I am also getting cold emails from a bunch of people that are going to be at the show. Hey, you got to make sure you stop by my booth. It's like, I ignore all that stuff. Right. But if they would connect with me on social and there was a legitimate reason to get going, it would be a lot more productive.
Yeah. I like Brian's comments. It sort of sounds like intentional networking. And I think that the term that I love to use now is connect. Just connect with people. Be connected. Make connections. And that doesn't mean send a connection request. It means actually connect like a human being with people. I think I'm waiting for Trevor to give us a green light. Trevor Van Weerden, who you know, and I know Neela knows as well. He just did that. He did about a 6-month initiative of setting up meetings for a big conference. And then he was at the conference and he was showing all these pictures of people that when he first met them in real life, and I love this expression, their social media activity turned their first meeting into a hug instead of a handshake. And if you're strategically setting this up, right, you're strategically setting this up for a conference like that, and these are prospective customers, how much more likely are they going to buy from you or not even want to talk to your competition if when they see you there, they come up and give you a great big hug because they feel like they know you, then shake your hand and sit down for a formal business meeting.
And then forget about you.
Right. And this is the whole reason for years we entertain customers, right? We take them out to dinner, we get tickets to a ball game, we bring donuts, whatever. Everything was about trying to connect with people. And all of a sudden we got this tool that we call social media or LinkedIn or anything else where we can actually go out and be a human being and connect with more people in a single day, right? We could sit at a desk and connect with more people than we ever could by getting in our car and moving around, driving around and going to see people. And if I get in my car and I wanted to go make a few calls, what do I get? 2, 3, 4 people in a day?
If you're lucky,
If you're lucky. I created a post today and I think there's so far been, 25 some comments on it. I've connected with 25 people sharing my thoughts in the industry, and I've had 20 some people already connect with it. And I don't, however many thousand views of it. I can't possibly do that in an 8-hour day in real life. Unless I'm talking on stage. And that either costs a lot of money or you've got to be invited.
So one to many. Well, I can see we're running out of time here, but well, there's some other good comments here. Susan, that's an interesting one about the I have not used that, so I have to check that out. And and see how that works.
Yeah, that's really good, Susan. You know, I used to use that years ago inside of Facebook, and I forget what conference I was at, but I used it. Or when I was in certain cities, you know, I would just turn it on and go find who's nearby. And um, this one time, gosh, I can't remember where I was. Must be the age. But anyways, I used it and I was like, oh, I didn't know they were here. And I pinged them with a message and said, hey, I happen to be in town. I used the find who's nearby. And we got together. We, you know, I think we grabbed a quick drink, chatted for a little bit and reconnected, and then had ongoing conversations. And it was through Facebook at the time. So it was somebody I hadn't really talked to in probably 20 years. But it was a new connection, like, or a renewed connection. So let me pull this up. I always like what Nikki says, but I haven't read this yet. Connected customers tend to become repeat customers. Amen. Repeat customers are vital. Yep.
Well, now what she's bringing up here, right? And this kind of comes back to your hug, not handshake. It sounds like another t-shirt. I think we're going to have a full t-shirt line here. Maybe that's our business, is just, you know, selling t-shirts. But
there you go.
What, you know, and I totally agree with what Nikki's saying, because when you build a relationship, that lifetime value with that customer, right? The repeat sales, the expansion, the ongoing, and they're loyal, you know, I mean, they're not, the competition isn't going to come in and undersell you or whatever with that. Right. So yeah, a connected customer or somebody you've built a relationship with, your lifetime value is going to be way higher. It's going to be way more profitable of a customer. And again, that is another side effect of social selling, but it's also a side effect of buyer enablement, because if you enable that buyer and you put them in the revenue zone, then they're going to keep coming back and looking to you as that trusted advisor. So that's a side effect of both things.
Yeah. And being intentional with that too. Like when we talked, you know, again, Carson's got to get tired of the fanboys, but he said so many great things about it. Using Carson's story of closing a 9-figure deal with LinkedIn as a core part of it. One of the things he said is it was about connecting with all the different people and levels that were going to be involved in that decision. If you put all his eggs in one relationship basket, what we do know from Gartner, Forrester, all the other analysts is that the buyer influence, the buyer, the voices on a team that have influence into that buying decision, whether it's legit power, they say no and it's done, or whether they just have an influential voice with their boss who's a part of this team. But we've got 15, 20 different voices that are all contributing to this. You make contact with one or two, it's just not enough anymore.
No.
And you've got to expand that. So when you've got 15, 20, 30 people involved, whatever that number may be, but you are creating content, you are commenting on things that they're commenting on. You use social for listening to hear what they're talking about, what they're challenged with, and you're able to do that across the breadth of the buying team. You're positioning yourself to just box out your competition. You're positioning yourself to be that influential voice and the go-to person, like Carson did when he and his team went after and closed a 9-figure deal.
Yep. So exactly right. Lots of good side effects.
Absolutely. Well, Carson's going to be embarrassed when he comes on here and sees what fanboys we've been. But it's all good stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tom, I just thank you to Nikki and Susan and Brian and Butch and Neela, of course, and anybody else. If I missed them, I'm so sorry. I'm kind of scrolling through real quickly, but I think this topic for us around the role of buyer enablement is one that we just got to keep coming back to, because it's still so new. It gets confusing, and we've got to really, really differentiate that from lead generation with the pound. Is there a book?
Trying to do a shameless plug.
Is there a book that could?
There's a book that you can get on this.
Speak?
Yeah.
I've heard of that book.
I haven't read it, but I've heard it's really, really good. So I got it here. I'm going to read it this weekend. Yeah.
You should read it. I don't know much about the author, but I know he is just one really good looking man.
Well, that's all you need to know. Right. I think his picture's on the back of the book too, somehow. Well, there you go. Well, it's in there somewhere. You get the idea.
There he is. So, all right. Well, everybody, thanks so much, Brian. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that great talk today.
Have
And
a
we'll
good
see you
Labor Day
next week.
weekend, everybody.
That's right. 3 day